If someone told me years ago that the man I vowed to spend my life with would one day become the reason for my deepest scars, I would have laughed in disbelief. Love, to me, was supposed to be forever, faithful, strong, unbreakable. But life had a cruel way of teaching me lessons I never wanted to learn. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I thought I had the perfect marriage. At least, that's what I convinced myself to believe. My husband, Daniel, was charming, successful, and the kind of man people admired when we walked into a room together. He was the ambitious corporate executive. I was the supportive wife who kept our home warm and our hearts connected, or so I thought. We met in college. He wasn't the wealthiest or the smartest back then, but Daniel had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world who mattered. I fell hard. After graduation, he climbed the corporate ladder faster than I could imagine, and we built a comfortable life together. Our house was big, our vacations lavish, and our friends envied the life we had. But what no one knew, what I didn't even allow myself to see, was the slow, silent cracks forming beneath the surface. At first, it was subtle. He became busier, more tied up with late meetings and business trips. I brushed it off because I wanted to be the understanding wife. I wanted to believe in him the way I always had. But deep down, something about his distant eyes and forced smiles made me uneasy. One evening, I cooked his favorite dinner, rosemary chicken with mashed potatoes. I set the table with candles, hoping to steal back a piece of the intimacy we once had. He came home late, loosened his tie, and barely glanced at the meal. "Emily, I told you I already ate with the team," he muttered, heading upstairs. I remember staring at the untouched plates, the flickering candles mocking me. My heart sank, but I forced myself to smile. "It's just stress," I told myself. "He'll come around." But he didn't. The emotional distance grew. Our conversations became robotic, about bills, errands, his schedule. He no longer noticed when I dressed up, no longer reached for my hand in the middle of the night. I started to feel invisible in my own marriage. One day, I found myself confiding in my best friend, Clara. We were sitting in a small cafe downtown. She leaned forward, her brow furrowed with concern. "Emily, are you sure everything's okay with Daniel?" she asked softly. I forced a laugh, but my voice cracked. "He's just stressed. Work has been crazy." Clara reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Stressed men still love their wives. Don't ignore the signs, Her words haunted me. That night, I waited up for Daniel. When he came home past midnight, I confronted him gently. "Daniel, is something wrong between us? You've been so distant." He sighed heavily, avoiding my eyes. "I'm just under pressure at work. Don't make this about us." His tone stung. I wanted to push further, but the wall between us felt impenetrable. So I stayed silent, burying my doubts under layers of forced optimism. But silence has a way of feeding suspicion. Weeks later, I noticed things that didn't add up. A faint perfume clinging to his shirt that wasn't mine. Mysterious phone calls he took outside, his voice low and hurried. A sudden obsession with going to the gym, buying new suits, changing colognes. My gut screamed the truth I didn't want to face. Still, I clung to hope. Until one evening, something happened that cracked my denial wide open. Daniel had left his phone on the kitchen counter. I wasn't the type of wife to snoop, but the phone buzzed with a message preview I couldn't ignore. It read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" My heart stopped. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. Every fiber of me screamed to put it down, to pretend I hadn't seen it. But I couldn't. My worst fear had materialized right in front of me. The text was from a woman named Vanessa. There it was. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof. I remember staring at the screen, my vision blurring with tears. My chest felt like it was collapsing. 15 years of love, trust, and loyalty, all crumbling because of one message. When Daniel came home that night, I couldn't even look at him. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried silently, muffling my sobs with a towel. My mind was racing. Do I confront him now? Do I wait? What if he denies it? What if he twists it back on me? I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let him see me broken. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and acted normal, though my insides were in chaos. I needed time to think, to plan. Because if Daniel thought he could shatter me with his betrayal, he had another thing coming. I looked at him across the breakfast table as he scrolled through his emails, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that used to melt me. But now, it only fueled the fire in my chest. That was the moment I made a silent promise to myself. He might have tried to break me, but I wasn't going to be the broken one in this story. No, I was going to be the one who shattered his world instead. And little did Daniel know, his betrayal had just woken up a version of me he would never see coming. I straightened my back, forcing a calm smile as I placed his coffee in front of him. Inside, my resolve hardened. Because now, it wasn't just about love or marriage. It was about revenge. And I was ready to play the game he started. That very morning, as I kissed Daniel goodbye, I knew something he didn't, that his carefully crafted lies were about to unravel, and I would be the one pulling every single thread. The day I discovered that message, something inside me changed. The Emily who once overlooked his excuses, who tried to be patient, who tried to understand, she was gone. What remained was someone sharper, stronger, and far more dangerous than Daniel could imagine. But revenge isn't something you dive into blindly. No, it requires patience, calculation, and most importantly, proof. If I confronted him too soon, he would deny it. He would gaslight me, twist the narrative, make me the crazy wife imagining things. I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. So I began watching him more closely. That week, Daniel announced he had to leave for a business trip in Chicago. His tone was casual, almost rehearsed. He threw a couple of suits into a garment bag, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Don't wait up for me." The old me might have believed him. The new me knew better. The morning he left, I called Clara. My voice shook as I whispered into the phone, "Clara, I think he's cheating on me." I saw the text. There was a pause on the other end. Then Clara sighed, her voice trembling with both anger and sympathy. "Emily, oh my God, I knew something was off. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, my stomach twisting. "But I need to be sure. I need evidence. If I'm going to confront him, I want him cornered." Clara, ever the loyal friend, immediately offered her help. "Then let's get you that proof." With her encouragement, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Mark. He was professional, discreet, and didn't ask questions beyond what he needed. I handed him Daniel's travel itinerary and the suspicious number from Vanessa's text. "Give me a week," Mark said, his expression unreadable. "I'll find out who she is and what's going on." That week felt like torture. Every time Daniel called, pretending to be busy, pretending to be tired, I had to bite my tongue. I had to play the role of the trusting wife while my insides burned with rage. I smiled when he FaceTimed me, even though the background looked nothing like a hotel room. I laughed at his jokes, even though my heart was breaking. And then, on the fourth day, Mark called. "MRS. Carter," he began carefully. "I have what you asked for. Are you sure you want to hear it?" My pulse quickened. "Tell me." He cleared his throat. "Your husband isn't in Chicago. He's been staying at the Fairmont Hotel downtown with a woman, Vanessa Reynolds. Early 30s, works in his company's marketing department. They've been seen having dinner, checking into the same suite, holding hands in public. I also have pictures." My hand went numb holding the phone. Pictures. Proof. The nightmare was real. "Email them to me," I whispered. That night, as I sat alone in the dim light of my study, I opened the folder Mark had sent. And there it was. Daniel and Vanessa, smiling, kissing, walking arm in arm as if they were the real couple and I was just a shadow in the background. I felt sick. Betrayal tasted bitter in my mouth, and yet, beneath the sorrow, there was a strange calmness. At least now, I wasn't imagining things. At least now, I had clarity. And with clarity came power. The next morning, Daniel returned home, all smiles, carrying a cheap souvenir mug as if it proved he'd been to Chicago. "Missed you, babe," he said, kissing my forehead. I forced a smile. "I missed you too." My voice was steady, my expression flawless. He didn't suspect a thing. But as he unpacked his bag, I stood behind him, gripping the armrest of the couch so tightly my nails dug into the leather. "You lying, pathetic coward." But no, I wouldn't confront him yet. Not until I had the perfect plan. Days passed, and I became an actress in my own life. I played the doting wife. But inside, I was charting his downfall. Every lie he told, every excuse he gave, I cataloged it. I started secretly gathering financial documents, bank statements, anything that could help me if I needed to protect myself later. Clara was my confidant through it all. She'd come over at night, bringing wine and comfort. "Emily, you can't let him keep doing this," she urged one evening. "He doesn't deserve you." "I know," I whispered, my voice hardening. "But I'm not walking away empty-handed. If he thought he could break me and move on with her, he's in for the shock of his life." Then came the moment that pushed me past the point of no return. One Saturday, Daniel claimed he was going to the gym. But hours later, I drove past the very hotel Mark had mentioned, and there it was, his car parked right outside. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. I could have stormed in, caused a scene, but no, that wasn't my style anymore. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. And sure enough, after 2 hours, Daniel emerged with Vanessa on his arm, both of them laughing, glowing. She clung to him like he belonged to her. My heart twisted painfully, but I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped my own photos. Because this wasn't just betrayal, it was ammunition. When Daniel came home later, sweaty and pretending to have worked out, I smiled at him sweetly, hiding the fire raging inside me. "Did you have a good workout?" I asked. He smirked. "Yeah, I pushed myself hard today." "Oh, you'll be pushing yourself soon enough," I thought bitterly. I went to bed that night knowing one thing for certain. The game had officially begun. Daniel thought he could play me. He thought he could betray me and walk away unscathed. But what he didn't know was that I had just taken the first step in dismantling his world piece by piece. And I was going to enjoy watching it crumble. As I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, Daniel, I start pulling the strings. And when I'm done, you won't even recognize the life you once had." The next few weeks were a strange mix of agony and quiet determination. On the outside, I continued to play the loyal, loving wife. On the inside, every smile, every kind word I gave to Daniel was laced with venom he couldn't taste. I had the evidence. I had the knowledge. Now, I needed the right timing. Because confrontation wasn't enough. I wanted devastation. One evening, Daniel announced that he wanted to host a small dinner party for his colleagues. "It's important for networking," he said, barely looking at me as he scrolled through his phone. Normally, I would have agreed without question. But this time, I saw an opportunity. "Of course, honey," I said sweetly. "Invite whoever you think is best." He gave me a distracted nod, completely unaware that I already knew exactly who would be on his list. Vanessa. And when she walked into my home, into my territory, pretending to be nothing more than a coworker, I would be ready. The night of the party arrived. I dressed carefully, nothing too flashy, but elegant enough to command the room. I wanted Vanessa to see the woman Daniel had underestimated. I wanted Daniel to feel the heat of my gaze without realizing why. The doorbell rang, and guests trickled in. Laughter and chatter filled the living room. I moved gracefully among them, offering drinks, playing the perfect hostess. My heart pounded, but I kept my mask flawless. And then she arrived. Vanessa Reynolds. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Long dark hair, red lipstick, and a confident smile. But there was something else, something shallow in the way she looked at Daniel, like he was a prize she'd snatched from someone unworthy. "Emily, this is Vanessa," Daniel said casually, his hand lingering a second too long on her back. "She's from the marketing team." I extended my hand, my smile icy, but polite. "Of course. I've heard so much about you." Her grip was firm, her eyes flickering with something that looked suspiciously like triumph. If only she knew. The evening went on, and I watched them carefully. They tried to hide it, but every stolen glance, every secret smile spoke volumes. And my friends noticed too. Clara leaned over at one point and whispered, "That's her, isn't it?" "Yes," I murmured, forcing another smile as I clinked glasses with a guest. The fury inside me was building, but I wouldn't explode, not yet. Instead, I planted seeds. As I refilled drinks, I dropped subtle questions. So, Vanessa, do you travel often with the team? Daniel mentioned those long nights at the office. Must be exhausting. She hesitated, then gave a polite laugh. Yes, sometimes. Comes with the job. Daniel shot her a warning glance, and I almost laughed out loud. They were so sloppy, so sure I was blind. After the last guest left and the house grew quiet, I found myself standing at the sink, rinsing wine glasses. Daniel came up behind me, slipping his arms around my waist like he used to. You were amazing tonight, he murmured. I forced a chuckle, keeping my back to him. I try. But inside, I was seething. The gall of him, parading her into my home, then pretending everything was fine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying their glances, her smug smile, his lies. Something inside me snapped. The next morning, I decided it was time to show him that I wasn't blind. Not yet the full truth, but enough to shake him. At breakfast, I set down his coffee and said casually, "So, Vanessa seems nice." He froze, his hand halfway to the mug. Yeah, she's hardworking." I tilted my head, studying him. "Funny, she seemed very comfortable with you. Almost too comfortable." His eyes flickered, just for a second. "Emily, don't start. She's just a colleague." I smiled sweetly. "Of course. I trust you." But my smile made him uneasy. I could see it in the way he avoided my gaze. That was the first crack. Over the next few days, I became bolder. I asked little questions, let tiny suspicions slip into conversation. Nothing direct enough to corner him, but enough to rattle his nerves. And it worked. He started coming home earlier, checking his phone less in front of me. He even suggested we go out to dinner, something he hadn't done in months. But it was too late for his shallow attempts. I already knew the truth. One night, I decided to test him. As he showered, I slipped into his office and checked his briefcase. Inside was a receipt from a luxury hotel downtown, dated just 2 days earlier. When he came out of the shower, towel around his waist, I was sitting on the bed holding the receipt. "What's this?" I asked, my tone calm, but edged with steel. His face drained of color. It's for a client meeting." I raised an eyebrow. "At a hotel? For 2 nights?" He stammered, his jaw tightening. "Emily, don't twist things. You're overreacting." The classic gaslighting. I stood up, folding the paper neatly. "You know, Daniel, I might not be as naive as you think." He looked at me, truly looked at me, for the first time in weeks. And I could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. Good, because that was exactly what I wanted. The following weekend, I planned my own little surprise. Daniel thought he was meeting Vanessa for another secret rendezvous at the hotel. What he didn't know was that I'd followed him there, waiting in the lobby with Clara for backup. When I saw him walk in with her, hand brushing against hers, I felt a surge of rage so strong I almost stormed across the floor. But I stayed rooted, watching, waiting. They checked in, and I followed at a distance, snapping photos on my phone. Proof, undeniable proof. And then, in a moment of reckless courage, I walked right up to them. "Daniel," I said, my voice cold and steady. He spun around, his face pale as death. Vanessa gasped, stepping back. "Emily, I can explain," he stuttered. I raised my phone, the screen glowing with the pictures I had just taken. "Don't bother. I already know." The silence in that lobby was deafening. Guests turned to look. Vanessa's face flushed crimson, and Daniel's jaw worked helplessly as he tried to form words. For the first time, I wasn't the one crumbling. He was. And as I turned on my heel, leaving him standing there with his mistress, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. As the hotel door slid shut behind me, I whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning, Daniel. You've broken me once, but now, I'm the one holding the hammer." Walking out of that hotel lobby felt like shedding a heavy cloak I'd been dragging for months. For once, Daniel was the one caught, cornered, stripped of excuses. But confronting him in public was only the first step. I had no intention of letting him simply apologize, cry, or crawl back. No, my plan was much bigger than that. The next morning, Daniel stumbled into the kitchen, eyes bloodshot, face pale. He looked like he hadn't slept a wink. "Emily," he started, his voice hoarse. "Please." "About yesterday." I raised my hand, cutting him off. "Don't. Not yet." I'm not interested in your excuses. He flinched like I'd slapped him. And I almost laughed. For years, I was the one begging for answers, begging for his time, his affection. Now the tables had turned. I sat down with my coffee, deliberately calm. You know what I find interesting, Daniel? The lies. The effort you put into hiding all this. Imagine if you put half that energy into our marriage, we wouldn't be here. His mouth opened, then closed again. He had no defense. I leaned back, watching him squirm. But don't worry, I'm not going to scream, or throw things, or make a scene. I'm done with that. He looked at me warily. Then what do you want? I smiled thinly. Oh, you'll find out soon enough. The truth was, I had already begun crafting his downfall. Step 1 had been confrontation. Step 2 was control. Over the next few days, I acted almost normal. I cooked dinner. I went shopping. I even laughed at a sitcom we used to watch together. But beneath the surface, I was busy. I met with a lawyer. Her name was Sarah, and she was sharp, confident, and relentless. I showed her the photos, the receipts, the texts. She nodded, unimpressed by Daniel's theatrics but impressed by my preparation. With this evidence, she said firmly, you'll have leverage. In court, his adultery will destroy his credibility. You can walk away with the house, financial security, maybe even more. A wave of relief washed over me. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was strategizing. But still, part of me wanted him to suffer beyond paperwork. I wanted him to feel humiliated, betrayed, powerless, the way he made me feel. And fate handed me the perfect opportunity. One evening, Daniel announced we were invited to a company gala. Normally, I would have declined. The idea of playing arm candy for him after everything made my stomach turn. But then I realized Vanessa would be there. And what better stage for the truth than in front of the very colleagues who thought Daniel was the perfect man? So I agreed. The night of the gala, I dressed in a black gown that hugged my figure, elegant but commanding. When I stepped out of the bedroom, Daniel's jaw actually dropped. You look incredible, he whispered. I smirked. I know. At the venue, the room glittered with chandeliers and polished smiles. Daniel tried to keep his hand at the small of my back, but I pulled away casually, making it look natural. I could feel Vanessa's eyes burning into me from across the room. She looked stunning too, but insecure in my presence. Good. As the night went on, I mingled, charmed, and smiled while Daniel grew increasingly tense. He knew I was unpredictable now, and it terrified him. Then came the moment. The CEO called Daniel up to the stage for recognition of his dedication and leadership. As Daniel strutted up, smiling like the golden boy, I felt bile rise in my throat. But I stayed calm, waiting for my cue. When the applause died down, I stepped forward, clinking my glass lightly. Excuse me, I said, my voice carrying across the hall. Every head turned. Daniel froze at the podium, eyes widening in panic. I just want to say how proud I am of my husband. I began, my tone syrupy sweet. Not only for his incredible work at the company, but also for his commitment to building meaningful relationships. The crowd chuckled politely, not understanding. I pulled my phone from my clutch, holding it up, like the one he's been having with Vanessa Reynolds for the past 6 months. The room went silent. Gasps echoed. Vanessa's face went ghost white. Daniel's smile collapsed into horror. I turned to the stunned crowd. Don't believe me? I have photos, hotel receipts, text messages. He didn't just cheat on me, he turned our marriage into a lie. The whispers spread like wildfire. Daniel stumbled forward, voice cracking. Emily, stop this. Please, but it was too late. His pristine image shattered in an instant. Colleagues looked disgusted. Some shook their heads, others whispered in shock. Vanessa bolted from the room, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. I turned back to Daniel, my voice low but sharp. You tried to break me, Daniel. But tonight, I broke you. And with that, I walked out, leaving him standing on that stage, humiliated and powerless. The next day, the fallout was immediate. Clara called me, barely containing her laughter. Emily, the whole company is buzzing. Daniel's reputation is in tatters. People are calling Vanessa the office mistress. I smiled, sipping my coffee. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. But as satisfying as the public exposure was, I knew the war wasn't over. Daniel came home late that night, his face grim. "You've ruined me," he spat, his voice trembling with rage. I looked at him coolly. "No, Daniel. You ruined yourself. I just told the truth." His hands clenched at his sides, his eyes filled with fury. "If you think you're walking away from this with everything, you're wrong. I'll fight you in court. I'll drag you down with me." I stood, unflinching. "Try me. I have more proof than you can imagine. And Sarah, my lawyer, is ready to tear you apart." He stared at me, his mask of control completely gone. For the first time in years, I saw him for what he truly was. Not a strong, confident man, but a weak, selfish coward. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't just want to win. I wanted him to lose everything. As Daniel stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the walls shook, I whispered to myself, "This is the turning point, Daniel. You've lost your image. Next, you'll lose everything else." After the gala disaster, Daniel's perfect facade crumbled overnight. Word of his affair spread like wildfire, and within days, the man who once carried himself like a king now walked with his shoulders hunched, dodging stares and whispers. But humiliation was only the beginning. I had evidence, a skilled lawyer, and the determination of a woman scorned. I was ready to burn down every last illusion Daniel had left. The first blow came when Sarah filed the divorce papers. With the proof of his adultery, I had leverage. Our state didn't look kindly on cheating spouses, and Sarah assured me, "You'll get the house, the assets, and spousal support. He'll be lucky if he keeps his car." When Daniel was served, his face went pale. He stormed into the kitchen, papers crumpled in his fist. "You're divorcing me?" he shouted. I stayed calm, stirring sugar into my tea. "What did you expect, Daniel? That I'd forgive you? That I'd stay after everything you've done? You can't just take everything from me," he barked, slamming his hand on the counter. I finally looked at him, my gaze steady. "I'm not taking anything you didn't already throw away. You handed me the ammunition when you chose her over me." He stared at me, veins bulging in his temples, but for once, he had no words. The second blow came from his company. After the gala, whispers turned into formal complaints. Vanessa resigned under pressure, but the damage was already done. Daniel's boss called him into the office, and within a week, he was demoted, his credibility destroyed. Clara filled me in gleefully over lunch. "People are saying he's finished. No one trusts him anymore. The man who was supposed to be the golden boy is now the office joke." I smiled into my coffee. Perfect. Let him taste what it feels like to be discarded. But Daniel wasn't going down quietly. One night, he came home late, reeking of alcohol. His tie was loosened, his eyes bloodshot. "You think you've won, don't you?" he slurred, pointing a shaky finger at me. "But you're nothing without me, Emily." "Nothing." I stood my ground, my voice firm. "No, Daniel, you're nothing without me. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can crawl into whatever hole you belong in." His face twisted with rage, but he stumbled off to bed, defeated. The third and final blow came during the court hearing. Sitting across from him, I felt a strange calmness. He avoided my eyes, his once proud shoulders slumped. Sarah presented the photos, the receipts, the texts, everything. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue, but the judge wasn't fooled. By the end of it, the ruling was clear. I got the house, majority of the assets, and spousal support. Daniel was left with little more than the clothes on his back and a tarnished reputation. When the gavel came down, I exhaled, a weight lifting off my chest. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Daniel caught up to me, his voice low and desperate. "Emily, please, we can fix this. I'll change. I'll be better." I turned to him, studying the man I once loved. The man who once made me feel like I was the only person in the world, now reduced to a begging shadow of himself. For a moment, my heart ached. Not out of love, but out of pity. "You tried to break me, Daniel," I said softly. "But in the end, you broke yourself." And with that, I walked away, leaving him standing on the courthouse steps. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. The house felt different without him, quieter, freer. I redecorated, stripping away every trace of his existence. Clara remained by my side, my anchor through the storm. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think back to the girl I used to be, the naive wife who believed love was enough. That version of me was gone, but in her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and unafraid. One evening, Clara poured me a glass of wine and asked, "Do you regret it? Any of it?" I thought about it for a long moment before answering. I regret trusting him so blindly. I regret giving him so much of myself without making sure he deserved it. But do I regret ending it? No, because now I finally have my life back. She smiled, clinking her glass against mine. To new beginnings. I raised my glass, a small smile tugging at my lips. To never letting anyone break me again. Daniel tried to destroy me, but in the end, he only set me free. And as I looked out the window that night, the city lights glowing against the dark sky, I realized something. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in shattering someone else's world. It's in rebuilding your own, stronger than ever before. Final closing line. He tried to break me, but I didn't just survive. I rose from the ashes, and I left him choking on the dust of the life he lost.